What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Great Encore. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, joined as always by my co-host, Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how's it going tonight? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ben. It's another Motor Monday, and yes, it is filled, and we are good to go for the weekend that was in motorsport, at least in the secondary tier series as we do. And Ben, I was looking through the archives and absolutely not doing my job of preparing for this show. Instead, I was looking through the archives of these shows in years past and just seeing what number we're at. Looks like we're at episode 145. So here's to that milestone.
Will we get to 150 by the end of the year? I think we will.
Yeah, we will for sure.
There's more than 7 race weekends, 6 or 7 race weekends left. Yeah, so there you go. All right, well, start the countdown now, I guess, for episode 150. Maybe I'll go back and run through the playlist, make sure that's right. Because sometimes you add something to the playlist and duplicates for some reason, but I'll
give or take.
There's none of that.
Maybe for 150 there will be cake. We'll see.
Maybe we'll see about that. It would be fitting if we end the season at 150, but I don't know if it's going to quite work out.
Yeah, I think it might beat us before the season ends. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But in the meantime, the reason that we're at or approaching 150, I should say, one of the big reasons is because of the support of viewers like you. I feel like I'm on PBS, right? Viewers.
That
like
is
you,
a great segue.
Especially our Patreon investors there, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for continuing to support what we do at the Grid Network, as well as all of us, as well as all of those rather that have tipped us through Super Chat and Buy Me a Coffee, giving us one-time contributions. Instead, we appreciate it nonetheless. And if you like what you see tonight, you want to get your name on the board here or join our group of investors through our Patreon. The links to all of those things are in the description box below. Or, of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can just tip us through Super Chat as well. It is much appreciated. Now, let's start with the Xfinity Series recap. We were at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway this past weekend, and it's a usual story up front. Connor Zilisch has become very familiar with Victory Lane in this series in that number 88 Junior Motorsports car. But before we get into the race results, Brandon, I found it kind of hard to believe, given that we've been back at Gateway for several years now with the Cup Series and the Truck Series and everything. But this was the first time in 15 years, Brad Keselowski has been the defending race winner, I guess, for 15 years, that the second tier Busch Nationwide Xfinity, soon to be O'Reilly Auto Parts Series has been at Gateway. So do you think this race lived up to the hype? Was it great to see these cars and these drivers and these teams back at this racetrack once again?
I really like Gateway being kind of like that flat Darlington, kind of the way I look at it. It's still got that egg shape. It's got a lot of character to it whenever you've got horsepower to match it. And so when you bring the NASCAR Xfinity Series or next year the Nope Operas, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, you bring that horsepower and those big bodies back to a place like Worldwide Technology Raceway. It makes some good racing. And we saw some restarts there in the middle of the event where they weren't even back to the stripe again, and they were already going crazy for position. Of course, restarts are like that at a number of places, but I think it gave the drivers a good chance to get some good battles going in a unique way that we don't really see at other places. And it always helps here with the more harsh, big motor, small blade you get in the Xfinity Series when you get the package for a place like this. It's a great market too. I've never been there personally, so I'm not saying this because I've been there, but it's great to have that St. Louis market. Glad that we got the Xfinity Series back there, even though the Cup has been there for a while. It's nice to have the Cup event there now, and now in the playoffs too. Congrats to Denny Hamlin for. Whoop, there goes my mic. Congratulations for Denny Hamlin solidifying himself there on the Cup side and advancing to the next round with Chase Briscoe, but. Historically, Gateway has been that Xfinity Series or Busch Series locale. That used to be the major event that they would hold there. So a lot of history from that. Of course, you mentioned Brad Keselowski, his last win, the defending winner there for 15 odd years, and then beating and banging at the line and all that controversy. And there's a lot of history there with Gateway. So it was nice to finally get them back.
Yeah, and of course, who can forget that famous finish with Keselowski and Carl Edwards in the midst of their feud
Yeah.
around 2009, 2010 as well.
No love lost.
Yes, yeah, lots of memories of that track from the era in which we were growing up for sure. Remember, I feel like Reed Sorensen being so good at that track in the Ganassi car and the Juicy Fruit car back in the day. But yeah, as for this race this weekend, great to see all those teams back out there, Gateway, and despite the fact that it got a little chaotic with those restarts towards the end, despite the fact that for a lot of these drivers, I mean, heck, Connor Zilisch, William Sawalich, they were really only 4 years old the last time we were going to this track here.
It's crazy,
which is very crazy to think about. But they're your first and second finishers. Strong run for Christian Eckes as well in third. I see we've got a comment from one of our regulars, John Bender. Good to see you, John. I feel bad for Eckes. He needs to be in the 88 car next year. Well, that's certainly going to be the most coveted seat in the series. I think, of course, we know Zilisch moving up to the Cup Series for Trackhouse. I think he's proven that he is worthy of such a promotion here with what he's done. 7 of 8, I think 8 of 10 now going back that far. And if he hadn't finished, fourth at Iowa, would be on a streak of 8 finishes, eight race victories in a row, which is just mind-boggling to think that somebody could come that close to a streak like that in this day and age. And I'll have more on that, actually, my final thoughts of tonight's episode as well. But, Brandon, I guess we can't really say much more that hasn't already been said about Connor Zilisch. But when we look heading into the playoffs here, we had Justin Allgaier drop back. Unfortunately, not a great result for him down there in 28th place, but he was the main competition for the regular season championship that he and Zilisch, the teammates of Junior Motorsports, were fighting for. When you think of who might be the most worthy opponent, most worthy challenger, the driver that could most likely upset Zilisch in this championship fight, we know anything's possible when it comes time for Phoenix in the championship 4. Is that driver Justin Allgaier, or is there another name that maybe sticks out to you among this playoff field that might have the best chance of scoring an upset win at Phoenix and taking this championship away from Zilisch?
I think you got to go with Justin Allgaier. I think that's got to be your strong number 2. He's a perennial favorite and now the defending champion. So I mean, why not? I mean, he's just as good as ever. Junior Motorsports is just as good as ever, and like some other years, I think the only one that's going to beat a Junior Motorsports car is going to be their own teammate. So he's a strong second. Third would be maybe Jesse Love or Austin Hill from RCR.
Austin doesn't have the playoff points, so that's going to be something that he's got to overcome now as well. But
right, but I mean, RCR is a strong second. Not really a third coming to mind besides Jesse Love there. I already said a third, but I would say Justin Allgaier a second, Jesse Love a third, as far as championship competing caliber. I mean, all of our other wins really they've come from guys that have come down, or Kligerman getting a win and Zilisch getting the credit.
Right.
Of course, at Daytona, Sam Mayer popping in for some, Gisbergen, Sanchez with his breakout at Atlanta. It's been pretty predictable as far as the trajectory of this year.
Yeah, and I saw another stat. I've been trying to find it, pull it up. It's not coming up on my feed here, looking at Junior Motorsports' pages, so maybe it wasn't them, but I believe they have broken their own team record from a few years ago in terms of most wins for that one organization in a single season. Of course, they crossed over the 100 win mark earlier this year and are having, I think, what is inarguably their best year ever. Their 2 drivers, Zilisch and Allgaier, the young driver, the phenom that is already being rated as one of the top prospects in this sport, and the defending series champion as well, and the veteran Justin Allgaier. The 2 of them, I think, overwhelming favorites. I mean, Zilisch himself is the overwhelming favorite, but I think if I were to answer the question like you were saying, Brandon, I think Justin Allgaier clearly is the driver that Zilisch is going to have to go through to win this championship as Allgaier looks to defend the one that he won last year.
I mean, Ben, that 88 car is on a 4-race win streak. If Zilisch was in the car at Daytona, if only, but 4-race win streak, and if Sam Mayer didn't get in the way at Iowa, it would be it'd be much larger of a streak. We're talking an 8-race win streak If
that car has not finished outside of a top 5 since Zilisch broke his back at Talladega. Because when Kyle Larson got in that car at Texas the next week, he went and won the race, and Zilisch has been back in the car ever since, credited, of course, for the result at Daytona because he started the race, but he hasn't been. I mean, he went out and got injured the first time, and he hasn't finished outside of the top 5 since the injury. I mean, it's just the most remarkable stretch that he's been on. We were, talking, obviously got the win at Coda, but saying, he kind of started the season a little bit slower than we were expecting, given how much hype there was around this young prospect. When he goes and misses a race, and I don't know if that just lit a fire underneath him or motivated him more or what, but he's been absolutely sensational.
His winning ways really started picking up right after Prime stopped their cup broadcast this year, right about when TNT started up. I know they're not on Xfinity, but still, that's about the time of year whenever it really started to ramp up.
Yeah, well, let's also talk about William Sawalich here real quick. Good to see Kobe in the chat, and tipping his hat to William Sawalich. Back-to-back runner-up finishes, of course, came up just one spot short of Portland, then one spot short here at Gateway's last chance to make the playoffs with a win. Kobe says he wouldn't be surprised if he wins a race before the season ends. Obviously, Sawalich dominated in ARCA, driving the Joe Gibbs Racing number 18 car. Most drivers that get in that car have been known to dominate in ARCA over the last several years, starting with Ty Gibbs and Sammy Smith, who just announced he'll be back with Junior Motorsports next year. So congratulations to that group at number 18 on getting that word out there today. But for Sawalich, man, I mean, I don't know. I've got to say, based on how he started the season, if you would have told me that he would have been knocking on the door of a playoff spot these last couple of races, I mean, obviously Zilisch has been literally impossible to beat 7 out of the last 8 races that we've had here. But how surprised are you that he was able to turn his season around like this with back-to-back runner-ups and knocking on the door of a playoff spot? Maybe he will get that victory that would have gotten him a playoff spot and play playoff spoiler at this point.
It's kind of a late bloom situation for his maiden voyage for William Sawalich, because I can remember at the end of May from Nashville thinking, where in the world is William Sawalich? That's usually around Memorial Day weekend. That's usually the time of the year where you can kind of get the pressure gauge of, okay, where is someone's season headed, or how has it been as a whole? And it was not looking good then. So it really is surprising to see him go back to back between Gateway and Portland for William Sawalich. So the win could be coming. Kobe might be right on that if they can keep this trend moving in the right direction. Bristol will be a tough sell, though. I mean, you really got to be on your heels at Bristol.
Yeah, it will. And speaking of these top 2, speaking of Bristol coming up, of course, we've got the ARCA Menard Series East finale on Thursday night, and back last year was the 2 powerhouses in full-time entries in that series. Connor Zilisch in the 28, William Sawalich in the 18, and Zilisch looked set for the championship, got caught up in an accident not of his own doing, and Sawalich ended up surviving till the end. I think we've got 34 cars on the entry list, which 34 ARCA cars around a half mile like Bristol is going to be a very interesting situation. Yeah, going to be I think some multi-class almost racing out there with some of the smaller shoestring budget efforts, and obviously the powerhouses like Gibbs and everything. But in terms of a championship battle, we're going to have a really cool story no matter what happens. Isaac Kitzmiller has a 19-point lead right now over Tyler Reif, and if we have word now with the car count, it is still mathematically possible that Zachary Tinkle could finish in the top 3, have both of those drivers get taken out on the opening lap, finish 33rd and 34th. He would make up the 30 points that he needs to potentially win the championship. There is a mathematical chance. It is a highly unlikely chance, but it is a chance nonetheless. And he's only 11 back of Tyler Reif. So maybe if Reif runs into trouble, maybe if Tinkle can survive the evening, he could move up to second in the championship, which would be a really fantastic result, obviously, for everybody at Fast Track Racing. But got that to look forward to coming up here in just a few days. So,
and hey, it's the Bush's Best Beans 200 once again. Glad that East Tennessee company is keeping that tradition going.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll certainly look forward to that. And John is right here as well. You also have a Truck Series racing. You've got a whole smorgasbord of races to keep your eye on this weekend here at Bristol.
Yeah.
I should say at the end of this week. It's not even, it's Saturday night, Friday night, Thursday night. So you don't even have to wait till the weekend. We'll get some primetime racing under the lights at the world's fastest half mile. And John brings up a good point as well. Butterbean Queen going to be in the 11 car for Colleague this weekend, making his debut with that team. A lot of people thinking maybe a teaser for who might get one of the Colleague Truck Series rides next year in 2026. We'll see if that comes to fruition as well. We'll see how Butterbean does on Friday night, but obviously in prime position to take the ARCA championship, and great to see him getting that opportunity in the Xfinity car this weekend as well.
Butterbean winning the Bush's Beans 200. Make it happen.
That would be cool. That would be cool indeed. And I wouldn't put it past him either. So we'll just have to wait and see. One more final note in the Xfinity Series. Obviously, the last race before the cutoff for the playoffs, it came down to the Burton cousins, Harrison and Jeb, for that final spot. Harrison didn't have the greatest of evenings, but still with a 22nd place finish, it was enough to clinch that final spot over Jeb Burton, who saw some misfortune and was only able to come away with 36 place points. So this was one of the talking points I saw heading up to this race. People saying, oh, well, if we didn't have the playoffs, these two would be fighting for 15th in points, and it wouldn't mean anything. But now they're fighting for the last spot to get into a championship that is most likely going to go to one of the junior motorsports cars. But it's a talking point nonetheless, and I'm sure it mattered to Harrison and Jeb and the Burton family. So congratulations to Harrison on getting the job done there. We'll see. Maybe he can continue to raise that program over at AM Racing and actually make some noise here in the playoffs. Would love to see that for that team after what both driver and team have had to go through over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, Jeb Burton couldn't get the job done, but there was really only room for one of them battling for that last spot. And ultimately, it was Harrison who came out on top of that one. All right, before we move on to our open wheel race recaps, I do want to revisit a conversation that we had last week and want to send a public apology, actually, from myself to everybody that was, is, and will be excited for whatever Colton Herta is doing next year. We know it's not going to be an IndyCar. We know it's going to involve Cadillac as a test driver role of some sort, but I have to admit, I reacted with emotion on Monday when we first started hearing the rumors, and I only was selfishly thinking about this from the perspective of Colton Herta. At this point in his career, I wasn't thinking about it from Cadillac's perspective or from Andretti's perspective in IndyCar or from Will Power's perspective with what he was going through with the announcement that he would not be returning to Team Penske, the team that he has called home for the last, my goodness, what was it, 17 seasons, part-time in 2009 and then full-time ever since. I mean, it's going to feel very weird not seeing him in that number 12 Horizon car next year, but he will be at Andretti in that 26, replacing Colton Herta. And the thing that didn't occur to me again until I put all the pieces of the puzzle together, IndyCar's got this charter system now. Kyle Kirkwood, Marcus Ericsson, they're taking up 2 seats over at Andretti. Somebody would have been the odd driver out. Would Colton Herta have maybe not had that seat anyway? Because why would you not sign Will Power if he's available, right? Would Will Power have to do what Dan Weldon did in 2011? The reason he was on the sidelines, basically having to sacrifice a year of his career just because he was kind of the odd driver out of the musical chairs that was going on back then. Would we have only seen Will Power in an Indy 500 only entry? As unbelievable as that is to think about, a former series champion, a former Indy 500 winner, just as Dan Weldon was as well. There was kind of an extra driver for a team that now is limited to only 3 entries, at least chartered. There could potentially be an open entry, of course, but you know, who knows what's going to happen with Prema and everything with their 2 open entries and if they're going to be back next year. But there was no guarantee that there was going to be room for everybody at the end, so to speak, over at Andretti, you know, or Will Power would have had to find, I mean, can you imagine him maybe in a Dale Coyne car that would get him on the grid, but it would not be the equipment
he wouldn't win
that he's used to. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be a lot harder for him to win.
Yeah, fair enough.
Coyne's gotten a couple here and there with talents like Justin Wilson, Sebastian Bourdais, and names like that, but he wouldn't be the weekly contender that he has been for so many years at Penske and will, I assume, be over at Andretti next year. So when you look at it from that perspective, the timing perhaps in a lot of ways is right. With Cadillac coming in next year, obviously they want to get started with Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Checo Perez, a couple of experienced veterans, Grand Prix winners in their own right, two of the best number 2 drivers, I think, of recent F1 history.
Yeah.
And Colton Herta is going to be with that team. As I said on last week's show and in our chats over the last 7 days, he is in prime position to get a super license. I don't think he has to worry about that. If worse comes to worse, he can do his 5 or 6 FP1 sessions for Cadillac or the rookie test at Abu Dhabi or whatever to make up those extra points. And if he can't make up those extra points through this F2 season that it sounds like he's going to do, and if he finishes low enough in the F2 standings, well, then maybe he's not at the level he needs to be at for a Formula One seat anyway. And we'll revisit that in 2027. But I hope that's not the case for him. And I just want to echo what J.R. Hildebrand tweeted years ago when these rumors first started. Go fill in the blank, do it, Colton, and make us proud here in the United States, make Cadillac proud. And I hope he does well, and I hope we see him in one of those 2 Cadillac seats in 2027. And again, I just want to revisit what we talked about last week and say that I think you are allowed to change your mind when it is open to new information, new perspectives, and putting all of those perspectives together. And that's what I've done here. I could not be happier for Colton. He seems like he is ready to chase his dream. And like I said, I wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mind goes back to 2019 with the IMS college program. And on one of those off days, I decided to purchase a rookie Harding Steinbrenner, Colton Herta hat. And, if he never comes back to the NTT IndyCar series, I'm glad I picked that up, because if he gets his super license and he's a part of Cadillac F1 and rides off into the sunset and maybe one sweet day gets one of those coveted seats and has success, then it'll be fun to look back at his days in IndyCar. I don't care where he is succeeding, as long as he is still successful in his still really young career. We can read this comment here from Kobe if you'd like to.
Sure. Dan Towers was at Monza, said they're looking for Herta's F2 team. He said the switch from IndyCar to F2 is to show respect toward the European open wheel racing ladder system. And that's a great point as well. And, again, the more I think about it, of course, the fact that he technically has to do this, again,
right,
he doesn't have to. He could have found a way to do a handful of FP1s or, testing at Abu Dhabi or whatever to do his 100 kilometers and get 1 point for every set that he does. And he could nickel and dime his way to the 40 point magic number that he needs. Right. But, if he's not going to go down that path, he does need to do a season of F2 and finish basically in the top half of the standings to get over that mark.
Just respectful.
Yes. The system is incredibly flawed. It is incredibly silly that this is a necessity for him to do. Having said that, it is, I think, the respectful thing to do. It is going to get him experience on a lot of these tracks that Formula One competes at. It's going to get him experience managing Pirelli tire wear. I mean, these are just little things that can, go a long way in terms of, what he would be able to do and to do it in race conditions too. Because, I mean, you can be in the sim all you want. You can do as many FP1s as you want. Nothing compares to actually getting out there and racing. And he's, again, assuming that these deals all get worked out and come together, he will have that opportunity next year. And I think assuming that he is in line potentially for at least for consideration for one of these seats, because again, it's not just going to be given to him. He's going to have to go out and earn it. But if he can get this experience and show that he has earned this opportunity, I think it'll be all the better for it.
No, gone are the days now for Colton Herta of rolling to the green at Road America. This is going to be Abu Dhabi, lights out, and away we go. He's got to get that experience of a cold start off the grid, fighting for turn one, and that's what he's going to get here in F2. And just respect. I feel the respect that he has for the European ladder, and even though it isn't necessary, it is good on his character, good on the whole situation to go through this. Go through the trial of F2 and prove that you belong there, and you'll earn the respect of the paddock as well. I believe in doing that, and some of your competitors. And you're right, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that experience at all just showing up in FP1 or just being the reserve driver at all. So you got to have the racecraft and figuring out the Pirelli tires and how they operate and how the whole racing scene in Europe operates. I mean, this is an American guy. Sure, he's been over there to see things and participate, but it just the whole way of operation there has got to be so foreign to how it's done stateside. But looking back to how our conversation was about it last week. I was already thinking about the willpower part of the equation, and because my mind was fresh on Will Power's uncertainty about the next year, and winning at Portland, and which will now be his last win with Team Penske. If now that we know the truth, but he was already hinting at the uncertainty there, and it sounded like it may very well be the end of his career, or but we knew someone was going to pick him up, but then it just sounded like even he didn't know exactly where it was going to wind up, or it wasn't time to say it. But and then you mentioned the charter system and how that all is playing into it. He probably would have been out on the street anyway. So this couldn't have been a better timing, and I hope it works out the best for Will Power in the silver years of his career, but also Colton Herta going over to the European side. Success for everybody involved, and most likely David Malukas is going to find himself there in the Verizon Penske number 12.
Yeah, we'll keep our eye on that. I don't think silly season is quite done for IndyCar.
No,
either here.
That's the idea, though. That's what we think is going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly pointing that direction. Just talking about Team Penske and super licenses. One final point before we move on. This just gives you an idea of where the super license system is right now in terms of what gets prioritized and how you can play the system to your advantage, I guess. If Ryan Blaney wins the NASCAR Cup Championship, he will have 15 points from his championship in 2023, 12 points from his second place result in the standings last year, and another 15 from this year. Do the math, that would put him at 42. Ryan Blaney would be eligible for one of the Cadillac seats in 2026, but Colton Herta would not. I just want everybody to think about that for a second.
I'm thinking about it. Hold on, I'm thinking. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Because Ryan Blaney is nowhere near qualified to be in Formula 1 or 2 or 3. It's a different discipline.
Yes, it is. Yeah, entirely different racing. Not to say Ryan Blaney isn't a talented racing driver, of course.
I'm sure he could take a crack at it, but
if
he
dedicated himself to making the switch to open wheel racing, I'm sure he would give it a good shot. But as Jimmy Johnson of all people proved, as Haley,
it took a long time.
Yeah, Kobe's got a comment on IndyNext we'll read in just a moment here, but it is not an easy switch to make. And yeah, I don't think Ryan Blaney would think so highly of. I mean, again, it would go back to the whole idea of respect, right? I don't think Ryan Blaney would want to, just because he's super license eligible, he wouldn't want to jump in an F1 seat immediately if he were to go do that, right? Of course, you would want to work your way up the ladder system and get all the experience you need before you do that.
Right.
But he could, in theory, if he wins the title this year, make that jump straight away without having to jump through those hoops. But Colton Herta, because second only gets you 30 points in IndyCar, even though that's a much closer representation to open wheel racing over there, Formula 1 racing, he's got to be doing this F2 journey. But again, like we said, there are reasons behind that as well, and I think it's going to be good for him in many ways besides that. So again, we wish Colton nothing but the best, and we'll certainly keep our eye on that story as it continues to develop. One final piece of news here from Kobe in the chat before we move on to our quick recaps of the F2 and F3 races this weekend in Monza. Racer.com reporting some potential IndyNext news. 24-car grid, maximum no more than 4 cars per team, 4 Ganassi entries, more double headers. Lots of interesting stuff there for sure to keep our eye on. Again, I don't know how I feel about maximum grids. I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have because you only have to go back a handful of years when, they were lucky to get half of that 24 car grid size on there. So I suppose, you beggars can't be choosers in that sense. I don't know that I would like to see a field size cap, because then, it sends potentially certain drivers home. And again, I don't love the whole idea of no more than 4 cars per team either. I think HMD entering like up to 8 or 9 potentially is maybe a little overboard in some ways, but I don't know. Again, this is just me being more of a traditionalist here, not liking the rules and regulations that have been put into place. It reminds me of a charter system in many respects, and we certainly know how well that's going over in NASCAR right now, and we'll see what comes of it in INDYCAR in the coming years here. But again, certainly lots of news I think is going to break before we get to the start of the 2026 season. So as much news is broken already, certainly a lot of stories to keep following and keeping our eyes on as well. All right, and finally tonight, back from their summer break, Formula 3 and Formula 2, we will take you through those results here real quick. That's the second page. We want the first page for F3. There you go. That's the sprint race results there. Congratulations to Roman Belinsky, who inherited the sprint race win after Tim Tranitz, who you see him down there in 18th. He was given a 10-second time penalty for a start procedure violation, so that took away his sprint race win. Belinsky was the one who inherited it, and like we did very briefly for you, we'll give you the final third of the sprint results there to look through and see where your favorite driver ended up. And then in the feature race, it was Tisanopol Interpuvazak. I believe I got that pronunciation right. Not
that sounds right.
But, congratulations to him on winning the feature race. I believe his second race of the year, if I recall correctly. Congratulations again to him. Campos won the team's championship thanks in no small part to the effort that Interpuvazak and Nikola Solov put in, finishing first and second there. And as it's the season finale, we also crown a champion, Rafael Camara, who finished 5th in the finale of feature race in Monza. He is your driver's champion in Formula 3 for 2025. And we take you through the final part of the final results from the 2025 F3 season. So those are some names to keep an eye on for next season, perhaps in Formula 2. And speaking of F2, we will move on to those results now as well. Leonardo Fornaroli picking up another win in the sprint race ahead of Arvid Lindblad and Joshua Dirksen. Boy, he needed some good runs after the strong start of the season that he had. It's been largely a struggle since, but good to see him there on the podium as well. Richard Verschoor keeping his name up the top of the standings there with a 4th place finish. Tough weekend for Jack Crawford. We'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment here. But as we go over to the feature results, Luke Browning picked up his maiden F2 win. So congratulations to him on getting the job done in the feature. Dirksen back up there again in second. Another strong run for him in the feature race. And Pepe Marti rounding off the podium there as well. Fornaroli ended up 5th. Fornaroli and Browning are now 1-2 in the championship respectively. And for Jack Crawford, just missing out on points in the top 10 in the feature race. Another 0-point weekend for him. He drops to 4th in the championship standings. I will note, however, for whatever it's worth, don't think it's going to be next year, but while we're on the subject of F2 and super licenses, he was 5th in F2 last year. He can finish as low as 5th again here in 2025. Do the math, 20 plus 20 is 40. He will be super license eligible through the start of the 2027 season. So depending on how things shake out, Cadillac could, in theory, have a pair of super license eligible drivers heading into 2027, American drivers for that American team. We'll see, obviously, Herta having his name officially thrown into the mix, I think kind of throws a wrench in Crawford's opportunities perhaps to get one of those Cadillac seats going forward. And I assume, I think we heard, of course, you know how contracts are really just words on paper these days. I believe for Checo, at least, it is a multi-year deal that he has, and I'm sure they're going to want a veteran presence at that team for more than just their opening season. So have to think there would probably only be a spot for one of those young American drivers in Cadillac in 2027. But if Crawford can maintain what he's doing right now in F2, he would also be able to throw his hat into the mix with super license as well. All right, let's get caught up on a couple of chat comments here before we move on. Kobe says Arvid Lindblad was a big knot from the F2 feature race, missed his breaking point and wiped out Alex Dunn, stayed out on track with no front wing, no downforce, and then wiped out Roman Stanek. We'll see if that comes back on Hots and Knots on grid tonight later this week in just a couple of days here gives new meaning to killing two birds with one stone. Not the best showing from a junior driver who could be in contention for a Racing Bulls seat at Racing Bulls or Red Bull in 2026 and 2027. Of course, lots of discussion going on about where that team is right now. Isaac Hadjar performing very well in the Racing Bulls, even got a podium. Yuki Tsunoda continuing to struggle, as most drivers that have gotten that number 2 seat at Red Bull have when trying to go up against Max Verstappen. And Kobe brings up another good point as well. Max Esterson gets forgotten about as the other American driver in F2. Results not great, unfortunately. I just want to make sure I get the name right here. Here's, I guess, one of the shining moments from the weekend. John Bennett in 10th place, just beating out Jack Crawford for that spot. I believe that was the first point that he scored all season. Got a shout out on the world feed as well for finally finishing in the points. That is something that, unfortunately, Max Esterson is still trying to do this year. I see him down there in 15. The results just haven't been there like they have for some of the other drivers in the series. So hopefully he can get that turned around and at least pick up a couple of points before the season comes to an end. All right. With that, we'll get the graphic off the screen here. A little bit of a shorter show tonight. Again, only one NASCAR stock car series for us to recap. The Indy season is over. And in NASCAR Xfinity, same guys won 7 out of the last 8 weeks. Eventually, you kind of run out of superlatives to give the young Connor Zilisch. So, like I said, a little bit of a shorter discussion tonight, but that's all right. Frequently, I say we're going to try to keep the show a little bit shorter, and we end up going close to an hour anyway. So, before we get close to the 3/4 of an hour mark here, Brandon, without further ado, I'll ask you first, what is your one shining moment from this past weekend in the world of motorsports?
Well, I have to look back a little bit, but we're getting to one of my favorite, even though I don't watch nearly as much Formula One as I'd like to, we're getting to one of my favorite times of the season where we had the Dutch Grand Prix and going just off the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Of course, that's a lot of people's favorite, but it's just fond memories of recent years and being on vacation and stuff. I don't know, and watching the Italian Grand Prix. So, and then just some of the surprise qualifying runs and stuff we've seen here in recent years there. Of course, Max Verstappen came and stole the show as always. But anyway, I enjoy that track and also the Belgian Grand Prix, which was several weeks ago. But it's a lot of people's favorites too. My one shining moment will come for the Xfinity Series. Just want to simply highlight Parker Retzlaff. Retzlaff finishing 8th from his 26th starting spot. Not too shabby there.
Yeah, that is a great shining moment. Retzlaff, I think, has been a little up and down this season, but has put in some very strong runs times this year, and good to see him with another top 10 finish this week. Certainly worthy of a shining moment. We'll pull the results back up here. I hinted at it in talking about the battle between the Burtons, but I do just want to say again, shining moment as well to Harrison Burton and AM Racing. Like I said, driver and team both had a rough 2024. Harrison obviously got the emotional win at Daytona, but aside from that, lost his ride at the Wood Brothers, and that was really kind of the highlight of his season. Even after that news had broken, was kind of left without a job in the Cup Series, had to find a landing spot down in Xfinity, has made the most of it this year, and for AM Racing to have some stability after Haley Deegan was let go halfway through last season, and the rotation of drivers that were coming in and out of that team to have a solid driver like Harrison get them into the playoffs this year. I'm sure that team has to be happy with the results here in 2025. That's one shining moment for myself. And on that note, actually, AM Racing, perhaps a team to keep an eye on here. We got word this week, Haas Factory team will be switching over to Chevrolet for 2026. They, of course, have that technical alliance, but it does raise the question, who's going to be the flagship team for Ford in the Xfinity Series, or what will be the O'Reilly Series next year. RSS Racing is out there with Ryan Sieg and the program that they've been trying to build, but I think this could be a golden opportunity for the Tommy Joe Martinses and Jordan Andersons and perhaps AM Racings of the world to potentially fly that flag for Ford Motorsports and Ford Performance in 2026. Or maybe Team Penske decides they want to go O'Reilly Racing and return to what used to be the Xfinity Series and bring that program back. Who knows what's going to happen? Like I said, still a lot of pieces to fall into place of this 2026 puzzle here. And we will keep our eye on that as the season continues to come to a close. But as for tonight, our show is going to come to a close now. So thank you all so much for tuning in. and joining us for yet another episode of the Grid Encore Show. Be sure to follow us at Grid Network TV on all our social media platforms, X/Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky, whatever microblogging platform you are using these days. We're on all three of them, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn. Most importantly, subscribe to us right here on our YouTube channel and visit our website at gridnetworktv.com. Now, like I mentioned at the start of the show, if you really liked what you saw this evening, you want to consider joining the Grid Network as an investor of sorts, you can follow the link to our Patreon page in the description box below and join Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in helping us expand our coverage, get us to the track on a more regular basis throughout 2025 and beyond into 2026. You can also become a YouTube channel member, or if you're watching us live on YouTube, you can tip us through the super chat feature or super thanks if you're watching the stream afterwards or one of our clips. If you'd rather make a one-time contribution to us instead, or you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below as well. Any amount helps us continue to grow what we're trying to build here at the Grid Network. Now, like I mentioned, looking ahead at our upcoming schedule, don't miss Grid tonight with Kobe Lambeth. Thank you, Kobe, for being so active in the chat and contributing to the conversation here tonight. He'll be back with Josh Birch and Matt White on our flagship weekly motorsports news program, Grid Tonight, in just a couple of days, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Our new pre-race show format will continue this week as well. Bit of a different schedule with NASCAR being on a Saturday night again at Bristol, but lots to look forward to from Thunder Valley this week. Stay tuned for all of our Grid Live programming. As always, new episode of Women in Motorsports out as well, recapping F1 Academy at the Dutch Grand Prix weekend, so go check that out as well. I was a part of that with Emily Sharp and Joe Samniego. Always a pleasure to be a part of those episodes. And then we will see you back here on Grid Encore on a 167 and a quarter hour break. We're getting the show in just under 45 minutes here tonight. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
Yes, I would like to once again shout out my alma mater, number 22 in the FCS poll this week, Austin P, the Governors. Last Saturday in Athens, between the hedges, they held number 4 Georgia to 28 points. Now, we're a little puny school, so you should imagine Georgia should be hitting 50 or 60 points on someone like that, right? So Georgia now from number 4 to number 6 in the AP poll. Coincidence? I think not. Georgia plays Tennessee this Saturday in Knoxville, and so Tennessee, we warmed them up for you. You're welcome.
I want to say, on the note of college football, great to see University of Delaware, even though it's not my alma mater. My father works on the campus as a research scientist, and I've been very familiar with UD's campus over the years and do consider it a home state school for me. They got some national exposure on Big Fox this weekend playing Coach Prime in Colorado. Didn't go super well for them. Of course, this is the first year that they've made the jump from FCS to FBS, but I do want to say they showed an on-screen graphic of famous UD alums, and Rich Gannon was there, Joe Flacco, NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, Joe Biden, the 46th president, of course. Where was Scott Swift, Taylor's father? UD alum, class of 1974. Yeah. Golden opportunity for Fox to optimize their SEO with some Taylor Swift references there. Scott Swift,
come on, alum. Fox. I thought you knew how to cash in.
I thought so too. I still remember that when I was touring the campus through the admissions process. So, somebody asked a question about famous alums, and somebody said he was vice president still at the time, Joe Biden, obviously. But she said, "Well, Taylor Swift's dad went here. That has to count for something, right?" So, fun little fact about University of Delaware there for you. Kobe bringing up in the chat, my Charlotte 49ers are going to get smacked by Georgia in November. LOL. They were more competitive than I was expecting, Kobe. I got to give you guys credit over UNC and Coach Belichick. They had a shot at it still going into the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, couldn't quite close the deal there and make it as close as I'm sure you guys would have wanted. But holding your own against UNC and one of the greatest coaches ever, nonetheless, I imagine had to feel pretty good. All right, for my final thoughts here, getting it back to racing. Just saw a post before we came on the air here tonight. Kyle Petty says he believes Denny Hamlin, who picked up his 59th win this weekend at Gateway, he might be the last driver to get to 60 Cup race wins. You might think of names like Kyle Larson or Joey Logano or Chase Elliott if you throw them out there. But looking at their win totals and their ages, I have to say Kyle might be onto something here. To get to 60 wins in this day and age, the party with the next-gen car, I think sometimes we forget. We've seen a lot of drivers hit that milestone recently with Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, and going back a little bit, Jimmy Johnson, of course, not too distant past, and all the race wins and championships that he racked up. But to do it in this era and for Denny to still be as competitive as he is, and he might not stop at 60. He might go on to 61 and beyond there as well. Denny has been on record saying in the past that this was a major goal for him to now only be one win away from this major goal. He said it was a more major goal than winning a championship. Could Denny Hamlin potentially do both of those before the year is over? And how fitting would it be for him to cap off win number 60 with a championship of the season finale in Phoenix? We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I'm just saying, I really hope he does. I've been neutral as I can be, but when it comes to wanting Denny to get a championship already, I think there's a lot more than you'd think that are just, come on, man, just get it done already. Do it for the old man.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I will have no complaints if it is Hamlin, Zilisch, and Heim.
Yeah,
I think
it'd be very fitting.
Very fitting and very popular trio of champions there.
For sure.
Which means it will probably be, I don't know, Grant Enfinger, Justin Allgaier again.
And Austin Dillon.
Well,
okay. I had to throw the wrench in at the end. Goodbye, everyone. Good night.
Yes. Hey, be the first to win all three, right? Austin Dillon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That would be history.
True champion.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it would.
Welcome, North Carolina would have a party.
It would, yes. And all that in a year where Kyle Busch misses it. You know what? Actually, I wouldn't be mad if that happens either. Brandon, you put the thought into my mind. What a story that would be on so many fronts. So can you imagine? Kyle Busch must just be sitting back and, man, what would he be thinking if that was the outcome this year? But again, no guarantees. Stay tuned for championship weekend at Phoenix in a couple of months' time, ladies and gentlemen. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time right here on the Grid Network.